You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
Hi. Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, it's December 1st. It's 7:01 p.m. on the East Coast, 7:01 on day one of the 12th month. And I'm so happy to have you here tonight. It was a really nice break. A lot of things happened. It was it was lovely. It really was. And we weren't out of touch with each other. There was a nice Friday stream. There was also a wonderful Thanksgiving stream in the backyards. We did, Thursday we were live. Friday we were live. Saturday and Sunday were interesting in their own ways. But there's, decorating happened. I'll tell you a lot of stuff what's going on. In the first half, we're going to be doing a little bit of news, see how you guys have been doing. I'm going to open up the lines. You could just dump on me, whatever the hell you want to do, whatever the hell what's going through your mind. And there's plenty happening in the news-ish. There's the news, and then there's the news under the news. That's what I like to really peek in on. I just noticed. Somebody just sent me a link on the Discord before that Candace Owens went live about an hour ago. I think that was the first time since she announced I'm not going to be on air or whatever, and everybody's wondering what the hell's going on. That's just one of those things where I'm curious to see where it all goes because, there's so many cards on the table now and who's going to do what, or an official response from the White House. Is that going to come? Whose reputations are on the line. That's kind of interesting in that respect. And also, what dangles in the balance with that particular story is, if it's true, then we need to go to war with France for the first time in a couple hundred years. So that'll be different, that'll be different. Anyway, I'm going to go through a whole bunch of stuff here, especially the third world problems we have, especially when it comes to immigration. As you know, I want all immigration stopped for at least a decade. I've been saying that for about a decade, so I guess we should push that to 20 years now, maybe 2 decades. And there's been plenty on that front over the weekend. Front and center and all that stuff is what's going on in Minnesota and Michigan, wherever there are these diaspora, these Somalian diasporas that just pop up in their own little mini nations that really have no intention. The balkanization, the planned balkanization of the country, no matter what people in Congress or anybody else who stands by the facilitation of this ridiculous series of programs to bring people from it's just from incompatible cultures here in massive numbers, and then goes, they are the part of the fabric of this country. Really? No, not really. Not really. That's just something that snakes say. But I want to talk about that and a few other things that happened over. We have these the MRI. It was Trump's MRI results came out today. Everybody was hoping, everybody's hoping for different things. So I thought that was funny. Thought that was all funny. And then in the second half, we're going to have Greg Carlwood coming on the show. from the higher side chats. I was going to have him on. I did have him on back in October, or like the first week in November, and I said, listen, just come back December 1st and let's do this creepy stories from hospitals with nurses, doctors, nursing homes, hospice, whatever the hell it is. Let's talk about, glimpses into the other side kind of stuff. And that's what I have in the second half. I also have reels here. What else do I have? Hold on. Oh, first and foremost, tonight, I know you guys are going to like this because it is the season, right? Well, I'm bringing on, and tomorrow we're going to give these away, but I just want to let you know that tonight, starting tonight, I've got 2 Florida 1/2 gold backs, which means that you put them together and it's 1/1000th an ounce of gold. So these are, if you're going to transact with these, you're talking at about $5 or $6 it makes gold actually usable, because an ounce is what, $5,000. So I got 2 Florida gold backs here, 1/2. These are going down on the table, and we're going to be collecting super chats from YouTube, from quitefranklysuperchat.com, from Rumble, from the gold pills on Pilled. And I'll tell you something else. I am going inside of here. You know what's inside of here? Hold on a second. There we go. Let's see what kind of treats we have from 2 years ago that, oh my gosh. There's 2. And one of them's white. I thought I only had 1 black wheelchair Santa left over, fresh out of the box from Target, wherever the hell I bought it in 2023 when it was brought to our attention. Look at that. A brand new black wheelchair Santa. But he came, I did not order a white one. I ordered specifically black because the white is not courageous. I wanted the most courageous Santas there were. But they sent a white counterpart. So now I have a white and a black wheelchair Santa. So then tonight, this is great. I thought I only had 1 left. This means we have so much more Christmas cheer. Okay, so tonight, and we'll give it away tomorrow, we've got 2 gold backs and the white wheelchair Santa. Okay? He'll be scooting your way to your house. So I'll be collecting those names. We'll give those away tomorrow, and then I have more fun to have with you all. It's just going to be a good time. Good time. Just so happy of everything. And also, I put out some great footage from over the weekend. We went to Radio City Music Hall yesterday. It's the first time Aurora has been there ever. First time I went to go see the Christmas Spectacular since the only time we saw it over 30 years ago. Because I was not 10 years old yet. I was definitely not 10 years old yet. And I only remember little glimpses of it. I remember the snow confetti falling from the ceiling and all that stuff. And but this was just incredible. This was incredible. It was indeed spectacular. Radio City. My father wanted to bring Aurora as a Christmas present, and it was a really great treat to go out there. My dad's friends with the conductor of the orchestra too. He is friends with the conductor of the orchestra, who actually changed his show time from the 8 p.m. performance to the 2 p.m. performance so that we can meet him afterwards. Really nice man named Eddie Robinson, and obviously well established. If that's your gig every year, this time of year, that you're doing the Christmas Spectacular at Radio City, and it was just awesome, man. It really was. It's like 100 years of the Rockettes doing their thing. So 1925 to 2025, and they were the Rockettes. So it was great. Aurora has been dancing nonstop ever since. I mean, she's always dancing around, but now it's just like super powered. It's crazy. She's doing kicks all over the place. And visually, it was just incredible in there. They utilize the whole ceiling now with projectors, with all these projectors in order to get the stage presentation to essentially expand out into the theater. And and the whole time I'm just watching Aurora, who I'm sure the whole family just took turns peeking in on her too, because of her expressions, and always gets me choked up to see her in a state of joy like that. And actually there's some footage of that I uploaded to the members only section, not only on the website, on Patreon, Subscribestar, where you can subscribe, and then also on YouTube, because now we have 4 members that have joined up through YouTube. So now I'm starting to upload members only reels and other things there too. So it is a legitimate way to support the show right there through YouTube. And I'll have more stuff uploaded soon, including some Friendsgiving footage with Sal and the boys. Everybody at home was always wondering, hey, Frank, you should have some guests on when you're in Studio B, in the fighter jet cockpit that is Studio B. And I always, joke about how a guest would have to sit behind me, like we're in an F-14 or something like that. And I managed to get 5 guys in the closet with me last Saturday night. Just me and the boys. We could have actually fit about 3 people. I said, you know what, guys, come in here for a second. I want to see just how many people can fit into this damn closet with me. And the funny thing is that I think Lauren actually took some footage of us walking out of the closet. And I still haven't seen that. So that'll be funny to see 5 guys coming out of the closet together. And I'll post that to the members only section as well. So it's stupid shit. Oh, man. There's just so much. Hey, before we go a second further, roll call in the chat rooms, wherever the hell you're watching. If it's on YouTube, if it's on Rumble, if it's on Pilled, if it's on Twitch, doesn't matter where it is, roll call. Where the hell are you from? Where is the show being seen tonight live? And after the fact, you can leave that in the comments as well, because likes and comments, you got to do that for everybody you enjoy that you watch on the internet. Like the show, comment, and have a good time in the chat room. And I really hope you call in. First half, I hope you call in, although it's already 7:15 and I haven't shut up yet. So what am I going to do? Well, first thing is this. I'm going to go right into the news by way of the Western Journal. White House releases Trump MRI records or results. The White House released the findings Monday of a recent MRI conducted on President Donald Trump. The White House said it had previously declined to comment on why the president underwent an MRI during his physical in October, or what part of the body had been examined, according to the Associated Press. And listen, if you have the press and you have these people coming after you, anybody out there, you just have to understand that just that kind of jujitsu that needs to be played here. They're pressing, so draw them in. Oh, it was just an MRI. No, there's nothing. No, it's never. Wow, he's being secretive. We need to know what's in this MRI. Oh, the 25th Amendment. It's right. It's within our grasp. And then Trump, 79, told reporters on Sunday aboard Air Force One traveling back to Washington from Florida, if you want to have it released, fine, I'll release it. Here's the quote, as part of President Trump's comprehensive executive physical, advanced imaging was performed because men in his age group benefit from a thorough evaluation of cardiovascular and abominable health. The purpose of this imaging is preventative, to identify any early issues, confirm overall health, ensure he maintains long-term vitality and function. That is what Sean Barbarella said. That's Trump's physician. President Trump's cardiovascular imaging is perfectly normal. There is no evidence of arterial narrowing, impairing blood flow, or abnormalities in the heart or major vessels. The heart chambers are normal in size. Okay, not like the Grinch. Not too small, not too big, just normal. That's one of those things you want to have normal. Matters of the heart. You don't want small or big with the heart. The vessel walls appear smooth and healthy. There are no signs of inflammation or clotting. Overall, his cardiovascular system shows excellent health, Barbarella continued. And with every line, liberals started vomiting in their lap. Abdominal imaging also showed that, quote, all major organs appear very healthy and well perfused. The best perfused organs anybody could ever ask for in their abdomen. Okay? It's just it. That's just the way it is. Very well perfused. And that's after all the Happy Meal bullshit. That's after eating at the dollar menu for decades and decades and decades. Some people can do it. Some people can do it. Don't you try it. I'll be honest. I still think about the dollar menu. I don't do it. I don't go there because I know afterwards I just feel like shit. And, you know, if I really went to town on a couple of those cheeseburgers, I don't know why. But the next morning when I wake up, even though I brush my teeth thoroughly before I go to bed, I still feel like a cigar. You know, like you had a cigar and it kind of stays with you for a little bit. You can accept that if you actually smoke a cigar. But those cheeseburgers, they leave a cigar taste afterwards, and I am no longer one to trade up for that the next morning. It just doesn't. But I still think about it. I do. Everything evaluated is functioning within normal limits with no acute or chronic concerns. And there you have it. So, and on Air Force One, Donald Trump had a couple of very, very polite things to say to some of the reporters that were asking about his MRIs.
What part of your body was the MRI looking at?
I have no idea. It was just an MRI. What part of the body? It wasn't the brain because I took a cognitive test and I aced it. I got a perfect mark, which you would be incapable of doing. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank
you too.
These are the moments you got to soak up. These are the moments I love how terrible he is to them now. Oh, they deserve nothing less. Oh, let's do that one again. Let's do that one again. They deserve nothing less.
What part of your body was the MRI looking at?
I have no idea. It was just an MRI. What part of the body? It wasn't the brain because I took a cognitive test and I aced it. I got a perfect mark, which you would be incapable of doing. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank
you too.
You too. I want to know who you too was. Oh, man. You too. Looked at her. Had to be a her. He seems to have been going to war, especially with the yappy women. There are the guys who just get put to shame as well too. But I don't know. It's just the way it's been recently. Well, what are you gonna do? That's just the way things are. That's just the way it is. So, yeah. Radio City Music Hall was great. Should keep going back to that. And I'll tell you something else. I got a little choked up with Aurora watching her just in those states of joy. And you'll see it too. Again, if you go to the members only section, I already put it up there. But there's one thing other than the snow falling that I remember in Radio City from years ago. And that was the live animals for the Nativity. Now, I don't remember how the Nativity was actually set up 30 years ago or anything like that. You can go and check it out. I checked on the internet, YouTube, and other places, and they definitely have old recordings of them, of the performances. But the Nativity scene was something I was so pleasantly surprised by. Whether they preserved it as is begrudgingly or not, hopefully it wasn't. You know, showbiz these days. The Nativity scene made me completely forget where I was or what's, it was beautiful reading scripture, and it was I got to put it up on the screen. It was just gorgeous. It was wonderful. I was so pleasantly surprised by it. Didn't know how that would go. Because of course, Santa Claus comes out, who's the MC. And he's talking about Christmas is time for opening your presents to see what and family and good times. And of course, time-honored and oldest traditions that are sacred to us. And then he introduces everybody to his black wife. Black Mrs. Claus. The sacred traditions, which I was like, oh, whatever. You know, this shit is going to be meddled with as time goes on. But, and I'm sure she was a very nice lady, but they're on stage together like that. This doesn't work. I don't believe that they have any affection toward each other. Not that they aren't friendly. This just doesn't seem right. So anyway, there's that. Okay, you know what? Let's go to Minnesota, because there's something going on with the Somalians out there. Well, duh. But here we have a little bit from the New York Post to set things up. Minnesota social services workers slam Governor Tim Walz as 100% responsible for massive fraud of $1 billion. $1 billion roiling the state. Hundreds of state workers at the Minnesota Department of Human Services publicly excoriated Governor Tim Walz for allowing a massive fraud scandal to unfold under his watch and retaliating against their whistleblowers. Over $1 billion in taxpayer money was fleeced by dozens. Did you hear that? $1 billion. It's not $100,000 that was fleeced by dozens. Everybody went out, got a couple of thousand each. Over $1 billion fleeced by dozens of scammers in Minnesota's Feeding Our Future fraud scandal, the largest known COVID-19 fraud case in the country. Here's a quote. Tim Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota. We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but no, we got the opposite response. The Minnesota DHS employees' X account, which represented over 480 staffers, chided Saturday. Tim Walz systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports. Instead of partnership, we got the full weight of retaliation. It's scary, isolating, and left us wondering who we can turn to. Just last week, the Justice Department prosecuted the 78th defendant in what prosecutors have dubbed our Feeding Our Future fraud scheme. At least 59 people have been convicted so far. During the past 5 years, fraudsters targeted Minnesota's generous social safety net by setting up companies that billed the state for social services and prosecutors alleged were never actually provided. So, I mean, there, and of course, there is this is what you get out of everything. Out of everything. It doesn't matter how localized the money is. I mean, you can monitor it a little bit better. You know where it's coming from. Maybe there's a little bit of a tighter chain of custody of what's going on. But all of these, especially in big cities, educational funds, somebody's textbook funds, whatever the hell it is, forget about it. It is like a construction site in The Sopranos. There's skim on everything. Someone's taken fiber optic, a spool of fiber optics cable somewhere else to get melted down and sold off. There's a scam and skim everywhere. Donald Trump, deflect, demonize, come up with no solutions. He's not going to help fix anything on fraud, Walz told NBC News Meet the Press in an interview that aired Sunday. My God, there's a big difference between fraud and corruption is something he knows about. There's a difference between fraud and corruption. I think that they kind of go hand in hand. I think they do. But anyway, Minnesota has been a big part of the news that has really turned people around. I was even, we were talking with Rich Barris about a week or so ago. He'll be coming on again in a few weeks, but I would love to start having him pop in for some of these extra streams that I'm going to be doing in the mornings from time to time. Nothing set. I'll just be popping up, dropping in your lap, and all of a sudden I'll be doing a one topic stream, or I'll have a special interview with somebody. I have a friend, an old friend coming back on next week. Actually, a couple that you'll just see. But anyway, I want Rich to come on too, because he was talking about a lot of the truly America First things that were being put out there by the Trump White House over the last week or so, over the last week especially, because before that, all we were kept on talking about was, what's going on overseas and visas and all that. And now suddenly we're talking about cleaning out American cities who are just jam-packed full of people who should have never been here, who are all, protected under these deportation thwarting temporary protective status claims. And this is what we got. This is from alphanews.org. DFLers object to Trump's plan to revoke temporary protected status for Somalis amid fraud. Minnesota Democrats gathered in St. Paul to slam President Donald Trump's announcement that he was revoking temporary protective status, that's TPS, for Somalis in Minnesota. TPS provides temporary legal status for individuals who are presently in the United States but would face safety concerns if they return to their home country. Somalia was first designated for TPS in 1991. That designation has been continually renewed since then. On Friday, President Trump announced that he was revoking TPS for Somalis in Minnesota, saying Somali gangs are terrorizing people of Minnesota and billions of dollars are missing. Send them back to where they came from. It's over. Which, yeah. Even 1991. You think about that. There was never a reason to take people from any place in the world and transport them thousands of miles to a place that is just totally not. Man, this has been set up for such a long time. That's Bush 1 right there. That's the last year of George Bush 1. And it's just crazy. It's like that joke, that punchline from Hot Shots Part 2. Dieu. Where we're going to take them. We're not going to send our boys over there. We're going to take them. We're going to fight them over. And he actually says, bring them to Minnesota, teach them how to ice fish. When we'll fly them over here. But sir, the enemy's over there. Then we'll fly them over here. That's just nuts. It's actually happened. On Friday, President Trump announced that he was revoking TPS for Somalis in Minnesota. The announcement came after City Journal story about Minnesota taxpayer dollars being fraudulently obtained by Somalis and allegedly going to fund overseas terrorists. Doesn't matter where it was going, to be honest. For years, Minnesota has endured tidal wave of fraud, largely perpetrated by members of the Somali community. While many praise the Trump administration's announcement, TPS only applies to several hundred Somalis nationwide.
I want the African-American paraplegic Santa. Happy December, Frank.
Oh, thank you, Jay Britz. Jay Britz wants the African-American paraplegic Santa? Well, I mean, this is for white wheelchair Santa. We have to save the black wheelchair Santa for like at least one of our finales. Let's let them sit here and brotherly. Oh, the black wheelchair Santa is actually extending his legs a little bit more. Like he needs some leg room. White wheelchair Santa is just like, I'm just coasting along. Wait, what is this? Is the felt? Oh, we have a glue issue. Don't worry, I'll glue that for you. See, it's supposed to be like that, but he was kicking it out. So now he looks like one of the black wheelchair Santas that's just kind of coasting around in Universal Studios. One of those rascals. He's got the recliner. Actually, I think it works. We'll keep you over here with your buddy. You guys can talk about the news together. See? Racism is over. War is over if you want it. That's what you have. That's what you have to deal with. Thank you, Jay Britz. Interrupted my line of thought, but that's why I have the speech supers open there. Remember, if you want to interrupt the show with whatever, I'm having it open in the first hour. It'll read off your super chats on quitefranklysuperchat.com that are $10 or more. Just to see how that goes. You know, All right, let's see. So the Somali population in Minnesota is estimated to be between 50,000 and 80,000. Okay? And Nick Shirley was just out there not too long ago. First of all, here's a couple of statements from Trump himself about this. This was, over the weekend. So here we go.
Hi, sir. Happy
Sure.
Thanksgiving.
Hi.
What do the Somalians have to do with this Afghan guy who shot the national?
No.
Okay, so also over the weekend we learned about the Afghan transplant who shot the National Guard. The guardsman, one died. The woman died. I think that there's some kind of activity, brain activity, and responses that are coming from the other National Guardsman. And he's talking about this. Of course, we haven't dived into that yet, but there's seemingly some CIA ties there. Anyhow, Trump is asked about this because I think in the press conference he started talking about just other. It had to be. I didn't watch the press conference, but it has to just be about where there are areas of concern all over the country where there is, for no good reason, for no forward-thinking good reason, only for bad forward-thinking reasons, you have these areas that are completely out of control, that are not American. That's just what it is. And here's the response here.
Nothing but Somalians have caused a lot of trouble. They're ripping us off for a lot of money. There's a tremendous amount of money going back to Somalia. What the hell are we paying money to Somalia for? But they're ripping off our country at a level that few people have been able to see before. That's about the only thing. You talk about competence. We have Ilhan Omar, who does nothing but complain about our country and our Constitution. And she comes from a country with practically no country. It's devastated, it's crime-ridden, it's a mess, it's a disgrace. And we took their people at a tremendous... We're not taking their people anymore. We're not taking their people. And we're getting a lot of their people out because they're nothing but trouble. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Go ahead.
Well, listen, these are the harsh realities. And they were set up. These are all political hot potato games that were set up so that when these days come and you realize that there is no assimilation because the background, the base programming was never going to result in assimilation. Not these numbers. And that's not to say that there isn't Somali families who will just become sick and fed up of life in Somalia. And they can articulate the reasons why they want to be away, why they want to move, they want to distance themselves from that culture, from that kind of government, and why coming to America and becoming an American citizen and being a part of that civic culture is something that they want to choose for themselves and for the future of their family here. There is nothing to say that is all. Oh no! Oh, you're from Somalia. You're not allowed in. It doesn't come there. They want you to feel it's been reduced to that absurdity because, of course, it was introduced through absurdity, which was just round everybody up and pile them into Michigan and Minnesota. And on top of the fact that this was such a stupid program or series of programs and initiatives. It was also just a disaster waiting to happen when you consider birth rates where we are tanking ourselves. And I'm sure that there are, we have to consider other, non-cultural issues and more environmental issues as to why we're having problems there. Plus economic issues. People are a little bit more enthusiastic about starting families and maintaining large families when they believe they can feed their children. To the opposite, which is just they're popping them out like rabbits. It's just it makes no sense. So it has to make sense for somebody. The long-term sense, there was none. So anyway, Nick Shirley was out there not too long ago. This is Minnesota, he said, the Somali capital of America. English is a second language. Women are afraid to speak on camera, and Somalian gangs roam the communities freely. Here you go.
Being a Muslim here in the United States.
I'm not speaking English, only one Somali language.
What does it mean to you to be a part of Islam?
I don't know, I'm not speaking English very well.
How are you? Do any of you speak English? English? No. Can women speak to on camera? No. I kept going because I wanted to speak with some more of the elders here to see if they could share their story about coming here from Somalia and how they've seen the rise firsthand. However, none of them spoke English. How are you? Can I ask any of you guys some questions? No? Speak English?
English, no.
No? Do any of you speak English? After a few interviews, somebody came up to us angry because we were asking people about the rise of Islam inside this community. My name is Dick Shirley.
What are you doing?
My name is Dick Shirley. I'm a YouTuber. We're doing a video on the rise of Islam here in the United States.
The rise of Islam?
Yeah, it's the #1 converting religion.
The rise of Islam. Make it make sense for me.
Yeah, it's the #1 it's the #1 converting religion in the United States, so we're doing a top
the
subject on it.
#1 converting religion in the United States.
It's like the #1 growing religion. So
wait, isn't it after Christ?
What?
Isn't it after Christ?
This guy wouldn't show his face on camera, and this conversation kept going for a few minutes, and he demanded that we deleted the footage of the interviews that we took here on the street. I said no, and he said, you better go, and we're gonna make sure you leave. I've never been in a situation like that while I've been filming, where somebody comes out of nowhere and wants to take the footage. I was watching a video prior to this video, and there is a Somali gang war going on here inside of these apartment complexes, apparently. I think we just went upon a gang, and I didn't know that they were a gang. And right now, he said, you better leave, and we're gonna make sure you get out of here. So right now, there is somebody following from behind, making sure that we get out of this place. Not the most friendly welcome here into this part of Minnesota. What's it like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many times Nick probably hears this every day, but I know it's going to hinder his mobility if he's going around with a bodyguard. But you know, it's got everybody. I don't know. He does work that is invaluable, but people in Nick Shirley's situation, they need to start. They need to find a way to eventually evolve their operation so that they're able to do this without being noticed. Because it's. I pray for him, no doubt about it. You need prayers and you need situational awareness there. But to do what he does, you almost have to say to hell with situational awareness and put yourself in the middle of some really bad situations to get the story. You know, where's this? This is a. He was interviewing Nick Shirley. This was about a week or so ago. Interviewing a black Christian man speaking out against the rise of Islam in the U.S. after he was in a brawl in the streets of Dearborn, Michigan. So we're going from Minnesota to Michigan. Here it is.
You about to throw down here in the middle of the street.
Hey, man, listen. These people hate our country. They hate everything we stand for. We have to oppose them everywhere they go, all right? Black or white. If you're a Christian in this country, these people hate your way of life. They oppose your existence. We can no longer allow this. They come over here with their Ford Fusions. Go back to your country, all right?
Go back to Somalia.
Bye-bye.
Go back.
You think any of this is fear-mongering from the right?
No, it's necessary. You know, it's not fear-mongering. We need to do this because we're looking at what's happening across the pond in Europe, in Berlin, and France, all over, in London. Do we want to be like that? No. And black people, guess what? This country that you live in, you benefit from it. You should stand with your Christian brothers. Stand with our white brothers and sisters. This is our country that we've built together. We lose it, we have nothing. We lose this land, there's nothing else. You're not going to go to Africa and survive. You're not going to go to the Middle East and survive. Guess what? America was built by Christians. White people conquered the land. Black people benefit from it. We have to stand up for it. That's important.
I saw you about to throw down here in the middle.
Man, you know, I know we've been saying it for a long time. And unfortunately, we have a very thick, slimy veil that is put in our way by social media and what is trending. And there's just a lot of people becoming more and more resentful based on the terrible things that we see every day. But if black and white came together in the United States, who the hell's going to, that's, damn, man. There's just too much. There's too much to contend with. But it's so good to see it when it's just a reminder that you can't lose hope. But hope in what? Now, obviously, if you get the state to wise up, if something actually happens, you get the state to actually wise up and get behind an initiative to physically remove people who cannot be here if there's going to be a United States ever again. That we are talking about protective status. We're talking about different types of visas. You want to talk about asylum. All these different discount citizenship, diet citizenship initiatives that have been used to just pump tens of millions of people into this country who have absolutely no prerequisite desire to actually be American. They don't even have the prerequisite desire, let alone any kind of language skills or trades. Those were the fattest Somalians I've ever seen in my life. Those women sitting on the side of the road, God knows what they do all day. But I've never seen. How does that happen? How does that happen? Okay, so anyway, you can call in on that. There's that. And now there's this. Because I asked the question about a week or so ago when Rich Barris was on, when Brendan Dilley put out that tweet asking all those questions, I said, have got to be rhetorical. One of them was about the income tax in the Federal Reserve. Well, I said, listen, if one thing has to happen before another thing happens, if groundwork needs to be laid, then fine. How about give us some rhetoric? Give us some rhetorical. Give us some signs that there is moving and shaking, because all you hear about is 600,000 Chinese students and factory workers in Georgia, and Americans aren't smart enough for these jobs to make car batteries, and of course there's Israel, and then there's the Ukraine, and when are we going to start talking about us? This is pretty interesting, but again, we're going to have to talk about this at length. And I think that this would be one of the topics I want to bring up with Chrisanne Hall when she returns to the show, I think on December 10th. So in about 9 days from now, we'll be talking about the income tax. Here is President Trump's brief statements on this a couple of days ago.
For the next couple of years, I think we'll substantially be cutting, and maybe cutting out completely, but we'll be cutting income tax. Could be almost completely cutting it because the money we're taking in is going to be so large. And yet, other countries who have been ripping us off for many, many years, and many years they've just been ripping us to shreds.
Within the next couple of years, we'll substantially be cutting or cutting out completely the income tax. Could almost be completely cutting it because of tariffs, essentially. Now, I don't know the trajectory on any of this stuff. From the last time I read into this, there was about a couple $100 billion that was coming in because of the tariffs. And what do they tax? What kind of taxes do they take from us every year? 3 to 4 trillion? How many taxes collected by DC in 2024? Let's see here. Other available data points include the federal government's collection of over $5 trillion in 2024 and DC's total expense. Okay. So that's what I'm looking for. Federal tax collection. The U.S. federal government collected more than $5 trillion in gross taxes in fiscal. I just almost threw up. Oh, man. $5 trillion taken and wasted. Oh, man. Wow. And now listen. If that $5 trillion was not taken, that's not to say that maybe $2 trillion of it would have been collected still by state governments who would want to prop up their own programs that are being illegally managed and established on the federal level. So if you gave $5.1 trillion back to people who earn it, that were stolen from, that's not to say what one state or another would just jack up their state income taxes and all that stuff to be able to provide for one education initiative or another, or whatever the hell else, as long as it's in line with their state constitutions. And then, of course, if you don't like that, you can vote with your feet and leave the state. Doesn't matter where the hell you live in this country right now. You can't escape these ridiculous these taxes, these federal taxes. Can you imagine now? The real question again is $200 billion some odd dollars that are coming in because of these tariffs right now. $5.1 trillion in gross taxes in fiscal year 2024. That is a big number. Now you can say, well, Frank, it's obvious. There's only one of two things that we're getting from this. It's either that we are going to be getting nut-busting levels of spending cuts, or it's all bullshit, because even if there was a way to generate all that money through the trade deals, it still shouldn't be. It still shouldn't be generated and spent on this stuff. It's still illegal. It's still, there's no authority for the federal government to establish or manage programs and initiatives like this. So I really wish that we were privy to what plans are being laid, if at all. But this, every once in a while we get this dangled in front of us like a giant, juicy carrot. And I just hope you just never know. Okay. So with that being said, would we have enough money in the fiscal budget to go to war with France for targeting American citizens on American soil and just going for it? Now, I don't know anybody, if anybody can call in right now, 914-200-0269, you can give us a little bit of an understanding of what may have been said, if there are any big updates from today's stream that Candace Owens just did about an hour ago. I don't watch her show. But I'm pretty interested in what the next chapter in this saga is until it reaches some kind of conclusion where there's an outright denial, or there is an act, there is a war declared, which is not going to happen. This is not going to happen. So what I've read so far, and here's another thing, next week on the 9th, on December 9th, we're going to have, in the first half, it's going to be Megan Fox. Megan Fox usually comes on, does like 2 or 3 stories, and then she goes and does her 8 o'clock show. At 8 o'clock on the 9th, that's when George Webb is going to be coming on the show for the first time, because he's been covering all this stuff that's been going on with Candace Owens from the logistical standpoint of, who the players are, what kind of threats are active. He seems to think that there's a lot of there. Okay. So there will be breakdowns, and there will be reporting on this. There will be crash courses and time for follow-up questions. So if you have questions that pop up for you from now until the 9th, please send them to me and say, hey, here's a question for George Webb, something that's been, confusing me. I love those types of things to put into my notes, so consider it. But we've got this. I don't see any evidence yet. I don't see anything being made public yet. But there were things that were added to this, the new layers to this story on the over the course of the weekend. So the last thing I heard was that there was, France was paying for this team to kill Candace. And of course, we are all wondering, this is really because of the French president's wife and her genitals of origin? Could it really be? Anyway, the question I want to figure out, and everybody else wants to figure out there too, is, how did we get from her not accepting the official story, Candace, not accepting the official story of Charlie Kirk's death, to suddenly the Macrons of France were in charge of orchestrating her own assassination? And it has direct ties to what plays out in Ukraine and weapons dealing and all that other stuff. It's getting deep like that. I am not an authority on this issue. We're going to have a competent guest on it within a week, so you can hang your hat on that. But anybody who has been following it, who wants to put out a point, please, the lines are open, 914-200-0269. 914-200-0269, because we're going to be bringing on Greg Carlwood in a few minutes. So you have 9-minute window to call in and let me know what's happening. Then we're changing gears into spooky land for a little bit. So we got that. And then secondly, it means, again, it means a few things if it's true. This had nothing to do with the president's wife, which I think is just silly. And secondly, that elements of the United States government knew that these wet works operations were being formulated against citizens on American soil. Let's take a call. Caller, you're on the air. Do you have something for us?
Hey, Frank, what's up? It's there.
It's who?
Zerolast Eternal.
What's going on?
I called in shortly after the show.
Yes.
The big ball.
Absolutely.
Remember?
Absolutely.
We met at the show.
Absolutely. From the Jamboree. It's great to hear from you. So do you,
the metal guy.
Yes, indeed. Do you? So you have something on this story?
Yeah. I haven't emailed you in a while. Well, I was just thinking I wanted to give you the lead on something. Last week I just did a guest on my channel, Rotting Jewels, who does a lot of true crime investigation into Scientology and what was that, Process Church of the Final Judgment, which was active in Yonkers in the 70s heavily. And she's done an expose on Candace Owens. So she's done a lot of work with the researching the Stamford and the Greenwich area. So that'd be deeply interesting to you. You may want to talk to her on your show.
Oh, that'd be well. I would love to take a look at whatever you did with her. And yeah, but in the meantime, what can you give us any thumbnail sketches of what you learned?
Yeah, well, Candace has some connections, I think, to Pfizer in her history, because I believe she's mulatto, or one of her father or something is like half white or something like that. So like on her white side, she's got some of that old money. Like she's a little bit closer to the Erica Kirk conspiracy than people think, and that's probably partially tied into her little disappearance. And the dirt's starting to come out. I mean, I do know for a fact that she did go to Stanford High School, like public school, because I have a friend who said he remembered seeing her in the hallways in Stanford High when she was just starting to emerge on the internet as a big deal. Right. So,
okay.
So there's a lot that I'm still cracking the code on, just to get started in between all of my things that I am doing.
Okay. Well, do me a favor and just send me that link in email so I can skim through it. I really appreciate the last minute call here.
Yeah, you'll have it tonight.
Wonderful.
See you later, Frank.
It's good to hear from you, Zerolath. Be well. He's a local. He's He's very vibrant, works well. And let's take another call. Here we go. 612, you're on the air.
Hey, Frank. I'm calling about, this is Minnesota Cat.
Hey, Cat.
Yeah, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Where we're barely surviving the walls apocalypse. But I was calling about the Candace thing. I've been paying a lot of attention to it, listening to a lot of episodes. And my summation is that it seems as though the Brigitte family is really deeply entrenched going all the way back to World War II in covert operations in the United States, and how like Operation Paperclip and all of that stuff. It seems like she comes from some really old money, and she was likely part of the Project Monarch. I don't think I'm calling that right. And so in the transgender ideology that's coming out now, it's so much deeper. As we know, it's very satanic and dark and goes along with some really nefarious agendas that are global, because it's not just happening here in America or France, but globally, right? So what seems to be being uncovered in a deeper way from what I've heard and from what I'm kind of taking away is that that family line of Brigitte is deeply entrenched in espionage and really dark satanic things. And so for Candace to unveil this to people isn't just about Brigitte having a penis. It's really about the deepest depths of the cesspool that is the cabal government that runs the world. And that's why they're attacking her the way they are. And as we know, it likely goes back to the Zionists. As we know, it likely goes back to these shadow governments. And so,
yeah, but you know what it is? You know what it is? And oh no, okay. Well, we have a couple more minutes. So let me give you that time to wrap up your thoughts. I don't want to cut you off. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, so I was just going to say that what she disclosed today, and her thing is like how much of Delaware that France owns real estate wise. The history of Wilmington, Delaware, where the suit was filed against Candace by the Macrons for defamation. It was filed in Delaware, which Delaware has a unique jurisdiction where if a lawsuit is filed against a U.S. citizen in Delaware, and let's say, I don't know where Candace lives, let's just say Texas, her attorney representing her has to get somebody in Delaware to vouch for him in order for him to file a response to a suit in Delaware. So that makes it really complicated, and that's why things go through Delaware that are intended to destroy people through lawfare.
Okay.
And then there's the history of Wilmington being so much real estate owned by France, and there being unique ties to the FBI as far as like getting international delegates in and out of there very covertly. So that's kind of like that's like my summation.
All right. Well, so then there is the basis for my bigger nagging questions. And thank you for the call. I'm sure this is not the last time we're going to talk about it, because I'm waiting for a jump off point from the Brigitte people and that story. I mean, how many times have we? Now you can say what you want about the Clinton body count people, but there are plenty of just everyday people who accuse some have larger audiences than others, who at least accuse or speculate very powerful, influence-wielding politicians and political dynasty families and all that stuff of having undue influence over world events, and are actually active in very deep, dark, spiritually occulted circles. Okay? And these types of things are done. I don't know that this is obviously there's a defamation lawsuit out there, but as far as the assassination goes, I mean, you can sue somebody and say, shut up, stop talking about my wife and all that. But to then go and try to kill them because of that, because the penis might lead to satanic revelation, I just don't see that happening. It's very easy to get someone like Hillary Clinton just lets everything roll off her back, and she with a sly Cheshire cat smile, just let the peasants have their theories about me. It's just it doesn't make sense. That's why I can't wait to get into the weeds and get a crash course from people like George Webb about the actual what is the military operation here that she found herself like in the middle of the gears. What gears did she clog up in her initial inquiries into the official story of Charlie Kirk. That's what I want to know. You know, and how there might be overlap with the French, but it can't be about the penis. Get your hands off my penis. Just can't be. Okay. Well, with that, my friends, I am going to be, switching gears a little bit. I'm going to be switching gears because it's a Monday night. It's the first night of December, and I've got a great guest that's coming back here. You know, you've seen him around. He's a return guest. He's no stranger to the strange. And over the years, many of you have tuned in to his show for countless episodes that slosh through the murky waters of conspiracy and occult intrigue. Well, tonight, we're going to trade in bizarre, spine-tickling stories from nurses and doctors and whatever the hell else in between. He's curious as a kitten, an aficionado of the abnormal. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Carlwood of the Higher Side Chats. How are you, Greg?
Frank, what's happening? Oh, man. I hate to come right out of the gate and say this, but it is all about the penis.
It has to be all about the penis. I don't know. You know, it's one of those stories that you have to, you've bumped into in some way. Either you've read a little bit deeper into it, or you've just kind of taken the surface level scraps of the story. But what are your thoughts on this so far? Because it has gone so much deeper than what is already a very mysterious and very high profile public murder.
Yeah, man. So not only did I listen to Candace's last thing when you mentioned you wanted to talk about this, I listened to the last thing she did, then she took a week off, and she actually went live like 2 hours ago, as you probably know, and I checked that out as much as I could. But here's what's crazy is that, you know, Candace's whole thing is about Brigitte being a man. We all know that. But I interviewed this woman, Dr. Heather Lynn, and she was talking about some of her research into the occult. And she said she bumped up against the Candace story from a whole different angle. She was researching different secret societies, and she ran into one called the Pleiadian Rite. And I thought she meant like the Pleiades, but it's actually spelled different, unassociated with the Pleiades. And so she started going to some of her sources who tell her about these things, and they said that is a myth. And then she found an old occult book that actually had it in there and listed it and kind of described what it was. It is a group of French occultists, and they tend to go through transitions. And this goes back like centuries. And, you know, Tracy Twyman, when I used to interview her, she used to go on and on about Mithraic cults and the high-ranking members cutting off their penis, you know, going the other way. But there's something in the occult milieu, the deeper you go, that is definitely about, you know, reconciling the opposites. And what more dramatic way to do that than go through a sexual transition? And so she basically bumped up against this Pleiadian Rite, these French occultists, and then she started, you know, I don't know the exact details of this element, but she started bumping up against names that are associated with the family that Brigitte comes from. And so she thinks that Brigitte is one of these people who is a occultist that went through the transition, that is that committed, you know, I guess consider it that way, committed to the cult. And it's just weird. Another guy, I don't know if you've ever had Jay Parker on the show.
No.
But man, I interviewed him, I think it was 2017, and he's one of these satanic ritual abuse survivors. And I went back and looked at some of the transcripts from that show because I was like, I think he was talking about Arden, Delaware, which is exactly where Candace was talking about tonight. And sure enough, yes, 2017, I'm interviewing this guy. He says, my family abused me, incest, occult stuff, you know, satanic ritual abuse, the whole 9 yards. And they're based in Arden, Delaware. And I'm trying to find in my transcript I was looking at, but he didn't, I searched the word French and he never said anything about the French, but he did say that they were the cult of the, I'll find it here. Oh, the Church of the Marquis. The Church of the Marquis of Hell. And it's like, Marquis is a French word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just seems very weird that now, like, if I'm combing through my archive, I'm finding, oh, people have brought up Arden, Delaware before. And Heather Lynn has brought up this group of occultists that are based in France that to be fully committed, you go through a transition. And then Candace is talking about this too. It is very strange, but I think something is up in Arden, Delaware, and I think it is all about the penis.
Well, you know what? Now we have a little bit of a bingo card that is forming before us.
Yes.
We have a bingo card that is forming before us right now, Greg, and I think that this will be very interesting to see how much deeper it goes, because I don't know how this spider web is going to, how it's going to tie in with foreign war zones, and of course this French strike group was not even all French. Of course, there was an Israeli element to that. So it'll be very interesting, because if it does have something to do with some sort of a spiritual, then I can see. But again, this is what I don't get, man. And you've done a lot of these interviews with people when it comes to just, I don't know, fringe theories about very public events, whether they be assassinations or terror attacks and anything else like that. The whole idea about doing something in public for trauma sake, for those kinds of points that are scored on that level. I often wonder with something like this, if you really just wanted a story to go away, then why not poison a hamburger somewhere? Why, it's just like this whole thing, like the French, we're going to put together a strike team to go to the US and to take out. And then I don't know what did you see the anonymous French source that supposedly, this is something that came out over the weekend. He appeared almost like, America's Most Wanted, all blacked out face, and there was a pitch shifter on a French accent. I said, this could very well just be bullshit. But in this video over the weekend, it's a 3-minute video that all my buddies passed around and stuff, and it's supposed to be a testimony given from somebody in French service, military service intelligences that knows what's going on and knows what was being planned, right down to the point where he's talking about how this was supposed to be a live, on-air murder that was, again, supposed to be done for shock value, that was going to be framed as some sort of a jihadi inspired attack that was going to be essentially a disemboweling of Candace Owens on a live stream. So wow. I watched this video with a level of skepticism, because it's just too, I don't know, but people are saying that Candace is in danger to varying degrees, so maybe that's just one of them.
Right, that is something I did not see. I was kind of out of commission for the Thanksgiving weekend. I really needed a mental break for sure, but I mean, that kind of stuff pops up, as you know. We see that kind of stuff. There was that other banker who, went really deep into all the blood rituals that they're doing. I can't remember if he was French a couple of years ago, but sometimes it's just too good to be true, and that's one of those instances where I don't think people who really know actually talk, and people who talk don't know, as they say. But yeah, I would imagine that they do like to flex. That seems pretty clear. JFK, Charlie Kirk. It doesn't happen all that often, 9/11, but there's not a lot of subtlety in these attacks. They definitely like to make a point. And who knows how many subtle deaths there really have been, the ones that are under the radar. But they don't seem shy about it. I never see the French lumped in the way Candace is doing it. It just seems to be like a whole element of the milieu that I just wasn't super aware of. And it just started popping up more in my interviews and various things. It's like, wow, I guess there's something there. This weird Egyptian French connection.
Yeah.
Not only are they involved in Delaware, but just all these joint operations that Candace was talking about. Did you hear her talking about how the U.S. was involved in a joint operation with the French that was called Operation Valhalla? Like
No.
right before he was killed?
No, I haven't heard it.
Yeah, that's kind of a new one. I think that's something that she was just talking about today, and I was trying to take notes while also putting kids to bed. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. If you look up what her most recent stuff has been about, it's that there was a joint military exercise taking place just before Charlie Kirk's assassination. Mike Huckabee held a meeting with a former Israeli spy, and this was called Operation Valhalla, a training exercise in Minnesota. It was back in August, but the security forces were practicing long-range shooting, among other things. And it's all about this weird place, Minot. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with Minot, North Dakota, and then Minnesota. Apparently, this all comes from her tracing the plane. That's kind of how this rabbit hole unfolded, is tracing. She's looking at these two planes, the yellow plane and the blue plane, and they were supposed to be in Minnesota, and they got paid. They spent a couple million on repainting the planes, and it's like, Candace, of course, thinks that's a cover story, that they were doing a little more than just repainting planes. But how weird. We had that Valhalla comment that just sticks out, I think, in both of our minds when Kash Patel said, "See you in Valhalla, Charlie." And like, then the very people that Candace is tracing as responsible, the network of people, just not long ago did an actual Operation Valhalla where they're doing long range shooting.
Well, there's a
maybe they don't hide it all that well. Just nobody actually looks because they know they have the media compromised.
It couldn't. It could be that simple. It could be that there's just really no good way to put together a good plan these days. If it's going to be out, and perhaps part of the actual plan is just to be out there. Because when you think about a world that we live in that is just really being run and managed through psychological operations, and warfare is really psychological. There's always countries and regions of the world that are in strife, and there's, it's kinetic warfare is ongoing, but we really have been conquered without a serious volley of shots being fired. So when you think about something like this, maybe that's just part of it. Like, they kind of invest in loss along the way, where these things seem ridiculous on the face of it, but so much has been put into really demoralizing people and desensitizing people, and calling their attention away so often that they're kind of just numb to just anomalies that are going on around them. I don't even think that it's so much so that people trust the government, like, our parents and grandparents trusted Walter Cronkite back in the day. I really don't even think that the average person who doesn't even follow anything particularly trusts the government. It's just there's a level of, I say this often, there's a level of there's a lethargic nature to everything right now, and with that kind of a firewall in between those who are running the show and those who are actually paying attention, there's just a big sea of people who are either slow to understand or are indifferent in some way, and it becomes a pretty viable force to contend with. If you actually want to make some change happen, you have to convince sleepy people to wake up and start sprinting. It doesn't happen very often.
No, everyone is quite apathetic. And just another example of that, I watched the Age of Disclosure documentary, So You Don't Have to. And it's so bad. But me and my wife watched it last night, and you could play a game of taking a shot every time they say threat to national security, and you'd be probably in the hospital by the time it's over. I think we didn't even finish it. We missed the last segment, but counted at least like 20 plus times UFOs, threat to national security. But I just kept thinking, who is this documentary for? Anyone who's interested in the subject and is going to pay $20 knows all this information and a lot more. And then almost everyone else in my life who I've never had a conversation with about UFOs or anything like that, they don't even know that this is out there. So you have to be interested to know it's out there to pay for it, and then watch a documentary where all the information is already known, and it's really, really basic stuff. They actually showed the same 3 or 4 videos that they've been showing us, the Tic Tac and a couple other radar photos they've shown us over the last couple of years. They showed those things probably 6 or 7 or 8 times. And I just thought, man, if I was making a documentary, I definitely wouldn't show the same footage over and over again, or I would just shorten the length of my documentary if I didn't have enough material. But that's the thing. Like, there are so many sleepy people out there who are just apathetic, not interested in pretty much anything that's going on. But it's just another example of it. The military industrial complex is trying to push the disclosure thing out there. They've had a few different stabs at it. This is another one. The guy who made the documentary was doing all these press interviews, and here it is, another nothing. It's like there was a time when people were interested in this stuff and were interested in Roswell and what the hell's going on and Phoenix Lights and all that stuff. Are they out there? And most people just stopped caring, and now they're trying to push disclosure on a population that isn't interested anymore.
No.
And it's just kind of cringy to see them forcing it. Get the Rogan interviews in, get through the podcast circuit, the new alternative media, as they say. But it's just another example of an area where there's psyops going on and people are over it.
I'm over it, and I gotta say, I would have consumed anything that was UFO flavored, even just maybe 5-6 years ago. It was just, I was interested. I think the last 2 UFO related documentaries I watched, and I think the second one still holds up because there are bigger questions about maybe like ley lines and portals and all that stuff, and that is David Paulides' Missing 411, the UFO connection. I think that one what he did with John D'Souza. And then, but before that, the last one I watched, which I'm not interested anymore, is that the unacknowledged one that Dr. Stephen Greer did. And listen, your face-offs, your headbutting with Dr. Stephen Greer was very, very satisfying, because I remember listening to the Higher Side Chats episode when Greer was on, he was talking to you, and I realized that, oh, well, this is getting contested here, because and I'm glad you said it, because there's only so much, and I don't want to get too far off course here. I'm glad you said all that stuff to Greer, because I'm sick of people saying, well, the aliens will reveal themselves when we're ready. Like, well, we're not. Yeah. We're becoming more and more retarded by the day. But there are those of us who are more than ready. And why don't you just say hello and put your cards on the table? Like, what the hell are you waiting for? We're not evolving. And so it's just like, I can't stand those lines anymore. And I'm glad that was what episode was that? In case people want to go listen to it.
Well, I don't number my episodes, but if you just search his name, it'll come up. He's been on twice, maybe 3 times, but the one you're talking about, this most recent time, probably the last time he will be on, the drama started before we even got on the air. As you know, occasionally you can just tell the energy is bad from the second you send the Zoom link. I can't recall exactly the setup, but he just started complaining that no one has ever asked him. He wanted to use his phone. And I said, we'll get much better quality if we can have you on the computer with a computer microphone. He's like, no one has ever asked me to use a microphone other than what I want and sit there for 2 hours. I'm like, okay, here we go, dude.
No.
Here we go. And then, the first thing
I would have canceled.
Well, I come from retail, so I'm used to taking a lot of abuse right out of the gate.
I'm glad you didn't.
I still have to get the job done, but it was right during COVID, and he, bombastic egotist that he is, he comes out and he's like, I know exactly what's up with COVID, but I could never say it on the air on your show, or you'd be taken off the internet and your show would go away entirely. And I said, let's fucking have it, dude. Bring it on. Come on. I'm game. I will retire if I must to get the truth out of you because you don't know shit. But he's a doctor by profession, by trade. So even though he doesn't really go down into conspiracies, conventional conspiracies, he's pretty much only focused on the ETH thing. Because COVID was a medical conspiracy, he thought he was an authority. And I was like, what do you have to say about it? And he basically had nothing. He waffled for a while, and that was the first kind of crack in the conversation. And then once we did get to the whole UFO narrative, again, he's this guy who's like, I have privileged information, and if I told you a third of what I knew, like, you'd be assassinated tomorrow. He loves to play that card, but yet he's out there. And yeah, he that was one of the arguments that I hated to hear, that like they're waiting to present themselves until we're ready. I've probably had a dozen people say that to me over the years. And it's like, what does that even mean? Because we are being managed by a small fraction of 1% that is taking society down dark paths, and they have structures set up. You could even say that the financial structure itself is one of them that we can't escape. We're stuck doing mundane jobs to make a living so we can eat because we have green paper in between, this intermediary that they created that isn't real, in between us and the true abundance that could exist. So what does it mean we're not ready? 90% of people are good people, just trying to live their life, raise their family, love their kids, take care of as many people as they can in their inner circle. What is that not ready? What do you mean we're not ready?
Yeah.
By saying that, you're ignoring the hierarchical pyramid structure that really runs the world and the infrastructure around us that breeds psychopaths and elevates them to the top of power positions. We can't break that up. So what do we have to do? And it's just a ridiculous argument. It's condescending. And
yeah,
I just hate it.
No, and to expand on what I had said before there too, is just that when people drop that line, I think about that 90% of good people who, when you think, oh, well, they're waiting for us to take the next step. I think about those people who are taking the next step. Now, there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of brain dead people out there. But when you go into average good people who are smart, funny, but they are just focused on living a simple life, and routines are good and they are satisfying. And honestly, we would just like, most people would just like to see those routines become a little bit more satisfying, that we are getting a little bit more out of what we're putting in. And I don't know if we saw some kind of a light in the sky and something landed on the front lawn, we deal with it when we saw it. But otherwise, you can't expect people to be like, well, we have to band together to see if this UFO thing is really, we have to prove to somebody, to something out there that we're ready. But anyway, I have something for you. And I'm glad that AK on the Discord reached out to me, because I actually went into the Discord to see something that she had sent me before on this woman on Twitter that I've been following now. Her name is Glam Ham Radio, and she has been tracking all the flight paths of these planes that you were talking about with Candace Owens and that
I have a note on this. Go ahead.
Well, that Minot or the Minot, I think it's called Minot.
Minot. It's like Pinot. It's spelled like Pinot Grigio. That's why I'm like Minot.
You've got France on the brain here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so anyway, we have this thing over here. She said that it's a nuclear base in Minnesota that Glam Ham was talking about recently. I've been following really loosely, but I just wanted to throw it out there. So that Minot, I think, is speculated to be a nuclear base or some point of contention or whatever. So put that again on the bingo chart, and we'll see where it all goes from there. Right. Let me ask you this, as we're going to start transitioning into our last segment of the night. When it comes to things in the sky or things that are going on, just in the here and now, that maybe just beyond the veil of this life, What about your interviews? Have you ever done an interview where you had a story about really intriguing deathbed confessions? Because of course, people always give deathbed confessions a little bit more weight because what does the person have to lose, especially if they're in a state of clarity? You know, it becomes almost a little bit more anecdotal in that condition. But have you ever done anything on that? Because of course, those are always very interesting pieces of the puzzle when we talk about things like UFOs.
I can't say. I mean, there's the Warner von Braun thing that people cite all the time, that they're going to have multiple wars, new boogeyman, that it's going to be, you know, Islam, then it's going to be the Jews, then it's going to be meteors / aliens with Project Bluebeam. The rumor is that he disclosed that to his secretary, but I can't say I've had a lot of that. There's, you know, an interview I had with Linda Moulton Howe. She always has these insider whistleblowers, not exactly deathbed confessions, but she has all these whistleblowers with radical, wild claims about pyramids under the ice in Antarctica and all this stuff. And I think Linda is good natured, but I just think she's been fed a lot of information because people who want to run psyops in the conspiracy world realized, oh, here's a good vehicle to do that. You feed Linda a story, and that story gets on Coast to Coast AM. It does the rounds, gets on Project Camelot back in the day, and all the people who are into this stuff are going to know about it. So you can muddy the waters and have, not to disparagingly call her a useful idiot, but a useful journalist who is quite gullible and just delivers the information as presented to her. And she benefits from that as well. So I don't think she ever really lied about anything, but I do think she's fed a bunch of stuff. So those aren't exactly deathbed confessions, but you know, I'm hoping some of these guys, like Hal Puthoff is in that documentary, probably the only one. Him and Eric Davis are the only two in Age of Disclosure that I find interesting. It's a lot of Lou Elizondo, and like the grand finale is they get into the David Grush testimony. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe anybody's paying money for this. But I'm hoping Hal Puthoff or Jacques Vallée have something to say. And they're so close to the end of life. But Hal Puthoff's in there criticizing the legacy UFO program. I'm like, dude, you're 80 years old. You are that program. What are you talking about? You've been brought in to study all this stuff, so they say. But another thing that bothers me about that documentary, not to harp on it and keep distracting from where you're going, is just that, like I said to my wife, there are so many people who have experiences with strange beings. Another guy I interviewed was 2018. He was in a documentary called Witness of Another World, and he was this like indigenous guy in Central America who was taken on a craft. I believe the craft like accidentally killed his horse and then brought it back to life, something like that. He was taken on, got this download, and then he could heal. He had this healing ability after, kind of like Chris Bledsoe. And then he found out about his family lineage, and his family lineage, his great-grandma was a shaman. So then he finds out, oh my God, like there must be something connected to my genetics that makes these beings come and visit me and like remind me that I have this shamanic capacity. And it's like, yeah, where are the documentaries that are talking to guys like that instead of fucking Marco Rubio? I don't give a fuck what Marco Rubio or Lou Elizondo says. Another thing I said to my wife is like, he has a background in counterintelligence, and a good chunk of the documentary is like Lou Elizondo's a hero, and we have to vouch for his credibility. And the people who tried to cast doubt on his credibility are just terrible people. And it's like, look, dude, sometimes you make decisions in your life where you cut off certain paths from yourself. I say that about, you know, trans people. Like, look, if you want to be trans and that's important to you, go ahead. But maybe you just don't get to be a basketball player. Maybe you just don't get to be a boxer. I don't get to be a boxer. I'm deaf in my right ear. That holds me back from some things. That's just life. Sometimes we have you know, if you're 4'8", you're not going to be a basketball player, all these things. But if you have a background in counterintelligence and psyops and propaganda, I'm sorry, you don't get to be an authority on the UFO question because you're never going to be credible. And I don't give a fuck how many times you tell me you are. You're never going to get my trust. Trust is earned. And you have a background of lying in sophisticated situations. So like, sorry, you're not going to get to be the UFO guy. And you can whine about people questioning your credibility, but I don't care.
You know, I guess that crosses a lot of boundaries these days into other categories of media, because there are quite a few people out there who have either spent their own time working for agencies, or they have parents that have come up in one agency or another, and they kind of carry that around with their resume, and it automatically makes people say, "Oh, I don't trust them," or if they do pay attention to their work, they run that work through another lens and just are always on guard for something that doesn't seem like it's anything outside of, the company line. So yeah, I mean, UFOs, secret space programs, things like that. It's all part of it, no doubt about it. Because
yeah.
I
just don't want any more military insiders telling me the real deal when there's thousands of experiencers out there in the world. Like, you can find these books that are huge compilations of witness reports. You can go to places outside of the Western bubble, go to indigenous cultures that have big traditions of shamanism. Another thing a problem I had with Stephen Greer was he's charging like $5,000 to go on these meditation retreats to summon UFOs. What you're doing is, you're kind of co-opting indigenous practices, because they do this all the time. And like, foreign, bizarre metaphysical intelligences come and talk to them when they do their rituals around the campfire. Where's that documentary? I don't give a fuck about military insiders anymore. Like, there's a lot of different ways to learn about firsthand, secondhand accounts of actual encounters with transdimensional beings. They don't involve the military. So I just wish that it's just a thing where like they think they have the authority, and like, well, why would anyone ever believe this unless we said it? And so now we have this big documentary where Marco Rubio and Lou Elizondo are putting it all on the record. And it's like, you're too late, guys. It's flaccid.
I know.
All your bullshit's flaccid.
Well, hey, I shut up. What the hell? Quiet. I was talking about this in 2017, actually from 2017 and a couple, maybe 1 or 2 years afterwards, because it was that December of 2017 when we started getting a lot more of a change in tone on what's going on in the skies and what kind of technologies exist out there that our militaries had run-ins with that nobody knows. And all of a sudden, all that laughing and joking about UFO this and green spacemen that turned very serious, and you had serious reporters reporting on it, the Tic Tac, the Oumuamua object, all that stuff. And I remember about a year or two into that kind of pattern that started there, and I was like, something like that in 1997 would have just made the world stand still. Right, and like you said, it's just whatever. Whatever. I mean, when you're staring at $300 grocery bills every time you want to go get a week's worth of food, you really actually hope that an alien shows up and that they do have bad intent.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me of another aspect of the documentary with the Roast Fest. Me and my wife really should have recorded. I felt like I was really on a roll, but they talk about how they slipped in the need for disclosure. The Pentagon must disclose what they know about UFOs into the COVID relief bill. And I'm like, okay, well, is COVID a serious situation or is it not? Of all the bills and all of the government to hold out for some kind of government disclosure on UFOs, you waited for the national emergency of this deadly pandemic. Like, that's the one. Like, we can't pass COVID relief until we make sure the Pentagon gives us their UFO documents. It's like a psyop wrapped in a psyop. These are not serious people, to use the secession meme phrase.
Yeah,
it's silliness.
It is silliness. Well, hey, you know what? At least we're all burnt out. What the hell's going on here? I see maybe somebody's taking pictures. I see light flashing in through the other parts of my my studio over here. I can see through
That's not good.
No, it's not. No, it's not, Greg. But I think that there is a photographer across the alleyway. Maybe that's what's going on. Oh, great. This door gets busted down. Just everybody.
Call Candace. Call Candace.
Seriously. Well, you know what? I've got a good amount of people watching right now, so I can get the word out quick. Of course, it won't do me.
Put on a thick turtleneck.
It won't do me any good. All right. Anyway, I just want to throw this out there because you and I wanted to do this topic with you, and we can just do a little bit here. I wanted to do this with you back in October. And here is what we're going to do. I asked everybody, I said, listen, I want your stories. If you are a doctor, a nurse, EMS, I want some chilling, bizarre, on-call stories, whether it is, unexplained moments, crazy emergency room visits, supernatural moments, hospital hauntings. And I wanted to put this out here. Now, here's one I'm just going to throw to you. This is a voicemail I got. And I want to just let me know if you can hear this. Hold on one second. Let me know if this comes through.
Hi, Frank.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
Great. All right. Hi, Frank. Listen to this story.
Jen from Arizona. I'm a housekeeper at a retirement home, and one of the residents, her health was declining. She was in very poor spirits, and I only see them once a week. The next week I came in, I saw her going into her apartment. She looked amazing. She was back to her normal self as I knew her, and she looked great. So I made a mental note, like, wow, she looks great. That's awesome. And then at my meeting with my maintenance team, I mentioned how good this resident looked and like how healthy and how great that is. And my boss just went fully quiet and pale faced and was staring at me. Like, I was like, what? And she said, she died 2 days ago. I was like, dude, no, you're not punking me like that. It's not funny. She's like, no, I'm not joking. So I actually went to the front desk and asked if this person had actually died. And they had. And my brain could not square that away. That, I just saw her, fully dressed. Yeah. So, anyway.
That's it. So,
damn.
Listen, I've got things we can trade here, but that whole idea, those situations where a person had seen, I saw so and so, it looked great, or I saw so and so down at the deli or the bagel shop or whatever, and to get that kind of like blank stare from somebody and be told they're gone. They've been dead for a week. They've been dead for a couple of days. In this case, it happened at a nursing home or a retirement village or something like that. Greg, you've done a lot of spooky things and spooky topics over the years. What about this? Have you dug up that you want to add?
Well, just broadly, it makes sense that this would be an area of paranormal activity. I mean,
hold on, Greg, real quick. I think your microphone is actually pumping a little bit softer than it was before. Anyway,
test. That's
a little bit better. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So it just makes sense. It's a liminal space. People are coming and going in a hospital. And I checked out a book getting ready for this. I had a lot of time to kill up in the Georgia mountains. And I got this book, Haunted Healthcare, Medical Professionals and Patients Share Their Encounters with the Paranormal by Richard Estep. And just like this voicemail, pretty common to have stories like that. What I thought was interesting about this book is there's a lot of cases where kids in pediatric ICUs and pediatric wards and hospitals, they will talk about invisible friends, as kids do. And then there's a couple stories in the book where they can peg the description of an invisible friend to someone who recently died. Either the kid will say, I've been talking to this guy that has burns all over his body. And they're like, yeah, a guy died last week of burns in the ICU. Or, they'll talk about specific injuries or conditions. I mean, it's kind of like the Sixth Sense. He's talking to people who have like a bandage on their head because they got in a car accident or whatever. But it's kind of common, and a good vehicle for people sensing the dearly departed is kids. They just seem to have that knack. So there's a couple stories in the book about that. There's a couple stories in the book about doctors or nurses who are in the hallway and they see someone wandering around, and they then help them get back to their bed, or they try to lead them back to their bed, and then they kind of disappear, sometimes even while walking them, like with their arm in arm walking them. And then they find out that it's a patient who died earlier that week. I mean, this is essentially what the voicemail was. They saw a person, like nothing abnormal about them. In fact, they looked in tip-top shape and found out they had died. Like, that seems to be common when, even though I just kind of contradicted myself with these kids talking about like people who still are telegraphing their injuries
right
after death, it is also a pretty common box you can check that people look like they're
restored.
Totally restored. Yeah, great term. Another thing in this book that I thought was interesting, I didn't expect, is this third man phenomenon with ambulance workers. I don't know if you've heard this, but there are ETA or EMT workers who report this feeling of a presence. They call it the third presence because they usually work in pairs, and they just feel like again, it's not something that is described as being seen. It's more just felt, but they feel a third presence helping them, maybe a hand on their shoulder sometimes, or someone looking over their shoulder, someone who's just like in their corner, a spiritual presence in their corner as they're trying to save lives in the back of an ambulance. There's a couple stories of that. And one guy says that it's even like something that EMTs discuss. Like, I'm sure pilots, when they have a few drinks, discuss things they see flying in the sky. EMTs, it seems like maybe they say, have you ever felt the third man presence? So that was kind of interesting. The real icing on the cake is these cases of like a black mass or a shadow being. I know in your thread, I looked at some of the things that you had added to it, the Instagram post, and there's a photograph of what looks like a hunched over shadow being on someone's chest. I don't know if I ever trust any photographs like that, but I am inclined to trust, like, if I hear the same type of story, the same shape of a story a dozen times or more, I think there's something to it. And it seems like it's not uncommon to have, I guess you'd say, like incubus, succubus activity in hospitals. A nurse will look over and there'll be a shadow being hunched on the chest of someone. If this happens when people are sleeping, it probably happens when they're in a coma or when they're in intensive care, you would think. So it's just about energy sucking, these energetic vampires. So maybe some of them hang out around hospitals, but there's a couple stories in this particular book about that too. That's some of the highlights, I would say.
When I was talking, many of the times that I had Dr. Albert Taylor on this show, we would discuss, when we were not talking about OBEs and NDEs and all of that, we would get into more of his paranormal investigations. And that was really interesting because when he got down into talking about ghosts and what the nature, the autonomous, what nature of ghost is autonomous, if anything. And he was talking about ghosts who are stuck in loops and how some will always just be constantly going through the same routine inside of a kitchen or something else, where it kind of makes you feel like there is a residue there, but there's nothing that can move beyond that. Almost like it's a broken record, but an energetic broken record, that there's an imprint that's left. Really makes you wonder about the vinyl of reality. You want to talk about broken record. What kind of a backdrop is really reality comprised of when you talk about spirit and consciousness and free will and all that stuff. So I wonder about that, because there are plenty of people who'd say, listen, if you had any kind of a non-human encounter, then it was purely demonic. But then when you think about somebody, like you said, I saw somebody that was dead and they have been restored. It was them. It was not a doppelganger. My eyes didn't deceive me. I'm not nuts. Or somebody who, just like you said, like there's almost like that sixth sense kind of an encounter where a person who is still kind of wearing the mark of their injuries is around, and you say, well, is that a demon for real? Did they take on, or is this person that just died, have they now been graduated to level of demon for some reason or another? So I often wonder about that, those categories of beings and where they find themselves, especially maybe in transitions from one place to the next. And of course, when do we lose that sensitivity? If we're a cat, for example, in here, there's plenty. I have somebody in here that says that we had where it is in nursing home. Where is it? No. Oh yeah, here you go. This one was from Moanon. Says, when I worked in nursing homes or even family homes, and animals would often sit vigil with the dying. And many nursing homes that have a resident cat will tell you stories about how that cat starts visiting a patient more often or sitting on their bed for hours. It often predicts that they might be, or probably will be, the next patient to pass. I've never had a patient express that fear. Oh, well, that's more so about the sensitivity of animals, or at least the perceived sensitivity of animals. So that's why these stories are so interesting to me, because there is the very morbidly curious and glorious process of dying, which is just a cycle in life that of course takes us all varying degrees to get comfortable with it. But then there's also just all these other questions that it brings up about the nature of reality itself, and sensitivity to things that the eye can't see, and whether or not we are going to that place that otherwise can only be like felt in the gut when we're, in this form.
Yeah, man, I have a lot of these same concerns. And on the topic of animals, the famous one is Oscar the cat. He was a cat in a nursing home in Rhode Island, and they say he predicted over 100 deaths by going and curling up with the person who would die. And he would just curl up on your bed. The next day, you'd be dead. So they say. But that's one of the famous examples. Anyone can look up Oscar the cat, and it'll come right up. But yeah, there's guests I interview who talk about the whole going towards the light thing. And I've interviewed David Icke a few times. He talks about the Saturn moon matrix. He kind of considers that a trap. So it's like you have these people who say when you die, you see the tunnel of white light, and you're visited by loved ones who have passed on before, and they lead you through the transition. Some people think that's all demonic activity. Some people think that the death process has been completely hijacked by interdimensional beings that feed off our energy. We are not meant to reincarnate, but they have us caught in a loop because we keep coming back to this dimension that generates negative energy, and our souls can't get free to go home where they actually should go. So I ask these people, like, well, what are you going to do when you die? You're not going to go towards the light. You're going to go away from it. What if you end up one of those stuck beings running on a loop because you didn't go through the process? Like, I think that scares me more than anything. I've liked this life. If I come back and I'm reincarnated, yeah, I guess there's no guarantee I'll like the next one. But I definitely don't think this is a for sure hell dimension. Clearly, some of us are having a good time here, so I'll take my chances. I'll roll the dice. If the worst thing that could happen by going towards the light is I come back to this life, that's a lot better than being stuck energy or, being having your consciousness embedded in some environment and you can't get out, or your record playing on a loop, like that is truly terrifying. But you know, NDE cases, as you know, you listen to these people, and it's very common that they say, I went to a place that was so amazing feeling, I didn't want to come back to my life. It's so crazy because you think the moment before you die, you're clinging to life and like begging, please let me have more time with my loved ones. Please let me do anything to have just a couple more weeks or hours even. I'll do anything. And then you cross over. And as soon as you cross over, the commonality is that like, oh, I don't even care about that life at all that I had. I had a psychedelic trip that was exactly like that. Like once I popped through, I was like, oh my God, I don't care if I ever go back. It actually happened a couple of times. And then of course you do come back. And then I'm like, okay, I'm glad I'm back. But like when you're over there, you really don't care at all. And so the idea of it, is it a trap? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think it is a good thing. I mean, I have to conclude that I don't think the death process has been hijacked by the interdimensional beings.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure, but I live a better life thinking that it's not true, because I don't want to be totally black-pilled, even in death. Not even death can I escape.
What was it? Did you ever read into any? I haven't read any of his full books, but I've read enough of them. Carlos Castaneda. You ever read into his stuff?
I have his stuff, and I think it's a case of just being a bit too dated. I try to get into it, and I just think that, like, you know, like an old movie, you know, there's movies that people say, well, this is a legendary movie. It's like, yeah, well, so many things have been built off of it that improved upon it, that going back to it now in 2025 doesn't have the same weight. And I feel that way about Castaneda's stuff.
He said something particularly, what was it? The eagle. That the eagle was this cosmic force that essentially consumes the awareness of all conscious or sentient beings when they die, and that the ultimate goal of the sorcerer's essentially it's discipline or something like that is to gather enough personal and conscious power and all that stuff and awareness to avoid being consumed by the eagle at the end. Like, it's your final test. Like, you have to avoid being eaten up. So it's almost like what you're saying there. Like, is it a trap when you die and you're thrown into this, you know, soul recycler instead of being able to get to where you're supposed to go? Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when you said that. But yeah, I have to hold to my my brighter beliefs about, you know, the hereafter. I have to.
Yeah, but it is a good. It lets us know that what we really need to do is explore this more, so that we're not completely caught off guard. And there are ways to do that. You know, we have a culture that doesn't meditate at all, and psychedelics are illegal. And when they are used, they're not used in ceremony. They're not used educationally and theogenically. And we need to armor up our spiritual selves. We need to spend more time over there in life, so that when we go over there for real, we know our way around a little bit. We know how to navigate without a body. That these are things that people have come back and told us are possible. We need a modern Book of the Dead. You know, I consider myself a conspiracy talent scout. That is what I say. Like, I just ask the questions to the guest. My talent is picking the people who have interesting things to say and then getting the best out of them. So, I mean, if somebody wants to run with it, the Western Book of the Dead, the American Book of the Dead, someone should write it. You know, compile all the previous, take all the best parts of the Tibetan and Egyptian books of the dead, and all the best research of NDEs that have come in modern times, the last 100 years, fold it all in. Go to indigenous Native American shamans, get all the information, and then fold it in with the modern NDE research and call it the American Book of the Dead or the Modern Book of the Dead. That should be there. You know, we should always be building upon the knowledge we have of the other side, and engaging. Like, meditation will get you there. Totally sober meditation with enough practice will get you there. I think reality is designed for us to enjoy our life, but to be able to pop our head over if we want to, with just a little bit of effort. But like you say, you're staring at a $300 grocery bill. You're trying to pay the rent. You got to work 40 hours a week minimum. Who has the time? And that's part of the satanic, sadistic system that we're in. When people say that it's Satanists, what I really think is like people who hate nature, hate God, hate this reality and this creation, and they want to keep us from enjoying it, really. And they suck up all our time. If it's not work and paying the bills, it's entertainment, endless entertainment options, shallow, nothing. You're think about what you're doing. If you actually like sit in the moment and think about what you're doing when you're absorbing entertainment, your body is vegetative and your mind is in beta states, beta brainwave states.
Yeah.
Like it's hypnotism more than anything.
Yeah.
But instead of hypnotism, it should be meditation. It should be active exploration of the astral plane. And with enough of that, I think if we were to do that, I think we'd all feel way more comfortable about what comes after and what to do when we're faced with it. So you don't have to go in ignorant, people.
That might be the culmination of your life work one day, Greg. You never know. Maybe you are the one that puts together the American Book of the Dead. And this was a perfect touch of just everything I wanted to do tonight. We could have gone on for another couple hours, but I'm very grateful for the time you've given me here, and I look forward to the next installment. Why don't you let people know how they can find your work and when the next episode's coming out?
TheHigherSideChats.com, Higherside Chats on Spotify, YouTube, all the technocratic platforms in this dystopian world in which we live. And the next episode coming out is just okay. But the one after that is going to be really good with Stellium 7, if you know of his work. I dismissed it for a long time. I was like, this is too far. This is silliness. And he broke me. He changed me. I think his work has merit, and I don't know how to carry on with my life now. Well, that'll be a good one. Give it 10 days, it'll be out.
I feel bad for the person who was the front and center of the Just Okay episode, but anyway, Greg Carlwood, it's been a fantastic pleasure hosting you again, and I look forward to the next installment, my friend.
You're the man. Thanks for having me.
All right, there you go, everybody. The Higher Side Chats. They will keep you company at night and on long road trips. Okay, so. Listen, we're about to end. I'm going to bring you guys over to the flip side, but before I do that, I'm going to go into the super chats, which tomorrow I will be able to. I'm just going to keep the super chats coming all throughout the evening because I'll have my buddy Vinny Brusco in studio. That's going to be a great night. We'll have Julio Anselmo calling in at some point to talk about Alice in Wonderland and mind control. It'll be a nice time. And we'll all be better for it. It's going to be a good time tomorrow night. But,
I want to slap your butt cheeks, Frank.
Well, there you go. Okay. That one just came in from Katie. Katie in Texas. Getting a butt cheek slap in there. Thank you, Katie. That woke me right up. Lauren just texted. Said Oscar the cat would be kicked right off the bed. Well, I mean... You're going to have to just get better. Oscar the cat knows something. I would say just start taking your vitamins. You want to kick him off. It sounds like he's going to come back until you get better. Let's see here. Jeannie Yankee fan says, looking forward to Chris Ann's commentary. I can't wait to have that on. That conversation on again. Let's see here. Lee Demon. Hey, Lee. Lee Demon says Somalians look like King, but after look like King Tut, but after 3,000 years. That's one way of putting it. But Lee Demon, you have until midnight tonight to email me, or else I'm giving away everything that you won last Wednesday night. So just putting that out there. Let's see. Car Guys New England said, oh, wait a second. Oh, this was when it was turned off for the interview.
Black wheelchair Santa is on eBay for $1,000.
You're right. Guys, that's nothing. There was a black wheelchair Santa. That is on eBay for $7,500. And listen, I reached out to the person. Let me see. Did they get in touch with me? Oh, well, wait a second. Did they get back to me? Get the fuck out of here. This is going to be great. I reached out to the person who is selling a black wheelchair Santa Claus on eBay for $7,500. I said, I would love to have you on the show to pitch the importance of the black wheelchair Santa and you know, its value. Because, you know, it's just this time of year, I like getting into strange gifts and all the things that are out there at the time. I just got a message back from him. He said, sure, shoot me a text. We'll set up a time. I'm going to listen. You're going to be pitched soon. Maybe I can get him on for tomorrow night in the second half. I'm going to bring him on and I'm going to interview him about this black wheelchair Santa and why he believes the importance, the cultural importance, the weight behind this black wheelchair Santa is worth nearly $8,000. So that's going to be hilarious. That's going to be hilarious. And it's going to add more, add more value. You're going to be incredible. So let's see here. Why did Nikki say the guest will be an ad? Did he write a book too? What does that mean, Nikki? Who cares if he wrote a book? Is that bad? That I have guests? Is that commentary on guests sometimes being authors of books? This guy, of course, has done something even more important than write a book. He has preserved a piece of history for $7,500. So we'll see. We'll see where he gets into the schedule here. Let's see here. Joe Martinez, thank you so much. Jay Britt says, I want the African-American paraplegic Santa. That was from before. Let's see. Lee Demon again says, I got one thing for the Minnesota Somalians. I'm the captain now. Look into my eyes. Shotzi says, I'm going for the gold and the wheelchair Santa. Happy December. Jay Boogie says, good evening, Frank. So excited for tonight's show. It's great to have you out there, Janelle. And Car Guys New England says, Frank, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Today's my wife Shala's birthday. We love watching every show. It's been a long time. Well, I have Car Guys New England's wonderful bumper over here, but thank you, Shala. Thank you so much. And happy birthday to you. I hope you have a great, great night. Shauna Vision says, good evening, quite frankly, and all the friends. And there you have it. Hey, we have 2 new members on YouTube. So now you get to I'm going to be adding a lot more emojis, YouTube members only emojis. So you have there's only 4 there right now, but we got Wart Guy and Wireless Flame that's in there too. Welcome. And like I said, go check out the members only section. I'll be adding more stuff there too. That's also where I'll be dropping all of the exclusive links for our watch parties. Like for example, December 12th, Friday night, we're going to be having a Eyes Wide Shut watch party. You'll be getting the private link for that. And then, short conversation after the fact. And let me see, over on Rumble, how's everybody doing on Rumble? Real quick before we get out of here. Haywood says, I want a wheelchair Santa, and I'm not a racist. No, of course not. It has nothing to do with that. Jay Semo says, it's all about the peanuts. Great show. And then finally, over on Pilled, before we make our way over there for the flip side, 9:03, still decent time. I'm not too late. Amethyst Cat says, happy Monday. Dark Heart Hemi, thank you, Frank. Appreciate the email replies. Oh, I work very hard to stay on top of the emails. Dub Helix says, I can't wait to play with my dick laser. Yes. Oh, that was in the mail. That went in the mail over maybe Thanksgiving delayed it or something, but Corey says, gold pills for gold backs. I'm in. You damn right you are. Safety Net says trading some gold for gold. Blessings for a peaceful new week. Love you, Lynn. And Delona says, I went to New York City for the first time and saw the Rockettes 24 years ago today. It's wonderful. It really is wonderful. I was so happy that we did it. I hope we do it every year now. Rise Attire is in the chat room right now, and they want to let everybody know. I'm so sorry that I forgot to do this, but I have the image up over here. Your Quite Frankly gear is 20% off until midnight tonight for Black Friday. You just put promo code BLACK15 in for 15% off. A store-wide at BLACK20. Oh, and BLACK20 for 20% off of orders $100 or more. Love you guys. Wear them in good health. So there you have it. QuiteFrankly.tv. Just go to merch, and the merch will be there. Also the mugs. Oh, the mugs. I'm bad at this. I'm really bad at this, man. I'm really bad at this stuff. We've got coffee. We've got coffee mugs. The mugs are 25% off. We got like 50 left. We got them for Christmas. It's all these Black Friday sales and Cyber Monday sales. That's what today is. And I'm just bad at this stuff. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you. Support the show. Buy merchandise. Right now, things are on sale. The mugs are 25% off. Let's sell out of those because we're going to create a 2026 design soon. And go get some coffee and buy some T-shirts. Matt's cryptid removal. Yeah, we have 2 amazing Matt shirts just around the time that he completely jumped the shark and left planet Earth. So remember Matt in the best way you can. And we'll make a donation to like the, Mental Health Society. All right, here we go. That's it. I'm going to read the rest of the gold pills on the other side of the end credits. Please join us on the flip side. The link is going to be in the chat room, and I'll see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Thank you to everybody who was a good sport, and weren't salty, bad sports about things. We'll talk to you guys in a little bit. No! This is how you start December?
I'll catch you on the flip side.
That's right, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you to everybody who has supported the show tonight in one form or another. Please leave a like, leave a comment, and share this with your friends and family. Bring them on for the 2026 extravaganza. 20 years on air and 250 years as a nation. See you on the flip side. Click that link I'm sharing right now.